Hello there, I'm Lindsay Ellis, published author, leadership and culture consultant, and fractional CMO. I want to start by asking you a question. How many of you have heard from leaders that good help is hard to find? I know I have. This talk is happening in boardrooms throughout every industry. Water cooler talk between employees. People are even going home because they're so frustrated with turnover rates, they're talking to their families about it. And after 2 decades in organizational leadership, I'm going to tell you the hard truth. Usually companies do not have a talent problem. They have a leadership problem. Let that sink in for a second. A few years ago, I was working for a company, working with their leadership team, and they were so frustrated, understandably so, because they were losing employees quicker than they could hire them. And they kept saying, it is so hard to find and retain good employees. When I started talking to each of the individual leaders as well as the employees, I uncovered something very different. At this company, there were not clear expectations. People did not know what success looked like. Accountability was very inconsistent, and expectations changed many, many times. In other words, it wasn't that people in the company didn't want to perform. It's that leadership had created an environment where success was really unclear. And that's when it became obvious. Like I said before, many companies don't have a talent problem. This one didn't either. The problem was leadership. In my experience, most people do not leave companies because the work is hard or the work is boring. They leave because the leadership environment makes the work harder than it needs to be. Think about that. Unclear expectations, micromanagement, leaders avoiding having those difficult conversations, or accountability that seems inconsistent or unfair. Over time, those behaviors really erode trust, motivation, and performance, and great employees suddenly become disengaged. Many, many organizations get stuck with this idea that they have a talent problem. But the real driver of engagement and performance is leadership behavior. Culture is not created through posters on a wall or values written in a handbook. And I'm not telling you you should not have those, because you should. That makes for a great, warm, fuzzy environment that does help to motivate people. But if you're not creating an environment where you're living those values, then your employees are going to be disengaged and your turnover is going to continue to be high. Culture is created through everyday leadership behavior. Say that again. Culture is created through everyday leadership behavior. Through my work with leaders and organizations, I've found effective leadership really comes down to 4 simple things, and I'm calling this my no-suck leadership framework. Number 1, clarity. People can't succeed if their expectations are vague or unclear. One of the biggest frustrations employees experience is simply not knowing what success looks like. Great leaders remove this frustration and they make those expectations clear. Number 2, trust. Micromanagement destroys ownership. When leaders try to control every decision and detail, people stop taking initiative. They're no longer motivated. But when leaders trust their teams to give them room to perform, something powerful happens and people step up. You hopefully hired each of your employees because you felt like they were a fit for the job that you hired them for, and you felt like they had the skills for that job. So don't micromanage them. Give them the autonomy to be creative and to perform and to make mistakes. Mistakes create teachable moments. This is how you're molding these employees to perform, to be successful. You're mentoring them. Micromanagement does not work. Give you for instance, I worked in Arizona for a boss that was in Florida, and she micromanaged every detail of everything I did every day. Every day I would have to report to her when I came in, tell her what I was working on for the day, when I was leaving for lunch, what I got accomplished, and when I was leaving for the day. I wasn't motivated. I didn't want to work for her. I was so frustrated. I had years of marketing experience, and yet I had to check in like I had a parent watching me all the time. I couldn't use my experience and my creativity. Don't micromanage. Trust. Give your employees that line. Allow them to be able to make mistakes and to thrive. The next one is accountability. Not the kind that creates fear, the kind that creates growth. Healthy accountability means those honest conversations are being had, clear expectations, and consistent follow through. When this is done well, accountability creates trust. And the last one, number 4, is ownership. Great leaders take responsibility for the environments they create. When something goes wrong, they do not blame their coworkers. They do not blame their team. They look to themselves and they ask themselves the question, what could I have done differently as a leader? And look, this is self-introspection. This is looking at yourself and realizing that you may have made a mistake, that you may not be doing things 100% the way that you should be doing them, and trying to figure out how you better yourself and how then you can better your team and your company. This is something all of us need to do, even though it's difficult. Look at ourselves. This is important. As a mom, as a dad, as a friend, we need to be looking at ourselves and trying to improve ourselves. Why does this all matter? Well, it matters a lot if you want to keep your talent. When leaders consistently demonstrate those 4 things, clarity, trust, accountability, and ownership, teams become more confident. Communication improves. People feel safe bringing their ideas and helping to solve problems. And performance improves because people know what's expected of them and feel empowered to deliver. Leadership behavior shapes culture, and culture shapes performance. Think about that. So in closing, when organizations say they have a talent problem, I often challenge them and ask them this: what if the issue isn't talent at all? What if the issue is leadership? Because when leaders create clarity, when they build trust, when they practice accountability, when they take ownership of the environment that they create, great people stay. Teams perform at a higher level, and organizations become places where people actually want to work and talk about wanting to work there. The future of work isn't about giving your employees more perks. It's about being better as leaders. Thank you.